Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Hart, and I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshop on Social Security filing strategies. Thanks for joining us. We've got a little treat for you. We're going to do some trivia before the top of the hour, which is just a few minutes away, but I do need to do a quick sound check. So if you could, if you're on and you're on one of the main channels, Facebook, X, YouTube, just let me know that you can hear me. If you can give me a thumbs up or sounds great, Dave. I'd love to hear what state you're in. I'm in Pennsylvania tonight. So if you're coming from one of the great other 49 states in the union, just let me know. Love to see that. We usually get people from almost everywhere. And as soon as I get some confirmations on sound and audio check, I can get started. So you can just use the chat function. So just type in sounds good or give me a thumbs up, anything like that. Thanks, Karen. So you're on Facebook. That sounds great. If you can hear me, let's see if we can get somebody from YouTube to tell me the same thing. And we are ready to go. If you're on YouTube, I am probably talking to you. Most people join a little closer to the top of the hour, so they don't get the wonderful treat that you're going to get. But if you could just give me a heads up, if you are on YouTube, and let me know. I see people on YouTube, so I know somebody's there. Can you hear me? Anybody? There we go. Thanks so much. I think that's Lisa and Sonia. All right, wonderful. And it looks like Sonia's in Texas. Thanks so much. All right, let's pull the trivia up and we will get started. Thanks so much for helping me out there. Now, to participate in this, these are all multiple choice questions. So it's just usually A, B, C, D. You can just answer with a quick response to the, thanks, Lisa, to the question in the chat box, just like you just did helping me out on the audio question. So let's get started here with question number 1. All right. How are the first 3 numbers of your Social Security number derived? So everybody has a 9-digit code, right? 3 numbers, 2 numbers, 4 numbers. Those first 3 numbers all come from some source. Is it A, the zip code of your birth city, B, the zip code of the issuing Social Security office, C, they're random, or D, the state where you were born? A, B, C, or D? Just type in your answer real quick, and we've got lots of these questions. We can get through as many as we want before the top of the hour. That would be awesome. Just throw in your guess, A, B, C, or D. A, the zip code of your birth city, B, the issuing office, C, random, or D, the state you were born. Karen says D. Great. Who else? We're not grading this, so you can't fail this. I see a couple, lots of D's here. All right, Karen, you started a landslide. All right, anybody? Oh, there's a C. All right, so the consensus is D. Let's take a quick look at the answer. It is B. It actually comes from the issuing office. When you went down to the Social Security Administration, for me, that was when I was 14. You had to do it to get a job so you could pay in taxes. So I went down to that. It was in the city that it was in. I didn't pay attention to what the zip code was, but that zip code, 3 of those numbers are in my Social Security number. That's how it works. All right. Let's do next one here. Why have more than 40,000 people claimed 078 05 1120 as their Social Security number? So more than 40,000 people have claimed this Social Security number. Is it A, the number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? B, the Social Security machine got stuck. Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Social Security got stuck and just kept printing the same number more than 40,000 times. Or C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands and thousands of people. What do you think? A, B, or C? A, B, or C? Again, no wrong question answers here. It's just trivia. So what do you think? Number that was stolen over 40,000 times. So security machine got stuck and simply printed it over and over and over, or it was sold at Woolworths, an actual card in a Woolworths wallet that got used or sold to thousands of people. I see C. Thanks, Shannon. There's an A. All right. We round this out with a couple of B's. All right. Anybody else? All right. There's interesting. Okay. Let's take a look at the answer. Drum roll. Here we go. It's C. Shannon was absolutely right. It was a copy of a real Social Security card that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people. This was interesting. Advertising executive borrowed a Social Security card from an assistant, put it in the package, unfortunately got sent to the printer. Printer printed that thousands and thousands of times. Apparently, this wallet got sold more than 1 million times. But 40,000 people said, hey, that looks like a real number. Let me try it. All right. All right. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number? Not a card, but a number issued to you. Is it A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers? B, you're experiencing ongoing issues of being a victim of identity theft? C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life? D, all of the above. A, B, C, or D? A is religious or cultural issues with certain numbers. B, you're experiencing ongoing issues of identity theft. C, people are harassing or endangering your life. D, any of those. What do you think? A, B, C, or D? A, B, C, or D? That is a D. Oh, D's. Looks like the D's are overwhelmingly. Everybody thinks it's all of them. All right. All right, let's take a look. Here it goes. You are all 100% right. Couldn't fool any of you. Any of those gets you a new number if you want it. And where the D's are still coming in now. Thanks, Annette. So yeah, any of those get you a new number. Now you are responsible then to get your employer to change it, to get your creditors to change it. That's all on you. But yeah, it's absolutely doable. You don't need a court order. You just need to prove that that's the case. I think we got time for one more question here. What year was the first Social Security benefit paid? All right, first benefit paid. Now, I'll give you a little bit of background. The Social Security Act was signed into law in 1935. So was it A, 1936 for 2817, 1937 for 1967, or 1940 for $22.54? What do you think? A, B, or C? It's just sort of a wild guess, right? An educated guess. I see some B's in there. Interesting. I can see the reasoning behind B. Well, 36 might be the obvious one. BBB. Oh, there's a C. There's another C. We've got some. It's getting closely split between B and C. Nobody thinks it's A, which is interesting. All right. Well, let's take a peek. It's C, 1940. Now, you might say, well, why? Why 5 years from the date the bill was signed? Social Security is self-funded. We fund it with our money. It's not a government funded program. It's funded by us. So they had to collect enough money from FICA contributions to be able to pay the people who are already over 65 who were due to collect. And to do that, it took some time to get enough to make sure that they could pay without having to stop paying because they ran out of money. That's the reason. Oh, look at all these C's. Okay. All right. I think that's it. It is top of the hour. We're going to switch. I'll ask our tech team to switch. And we are ready to start the workshop. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Dave Harden. I'll do that a little more formally in a second. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. First off, thank you for joining us. If you haven't figured out, we're just trying to have some fun with trivia. If you got to participate in that, thank you. If you didn't, hopefully you caught some of it and you enjoyed it. All right, housekeeping. I get asked all the time. The most common question I get asked at this point is, "How long, Dave? How long is it? Should I go to the restroom?" And the answer is maybe. This takes about an hour and 20 minutes, give or take. At the end of it, I always do a Q&A, a question and answer period, where I'll endeavor to answer your questions this evening. So that being said, you could help us out and speed this thing along if now or anytime during the workshop, you just go to the chat function that you just used for trivia or to say hi to me or to let me know that you could hear me and ask your question. Our tech team will sort them out and get them ready so that as soon as the workshop ends, we can delve right into those questions without any hesitation or wait and get through as many as possible. We usually stick around and try to answer every single one. I see people, oftentimes, tons of people stay even past their own questions. So you're welcome to do that, or you're welcome not to. This is a great time to get a drink. This is a great time to get some paper and pencil you might need, or pen if you're really good at taking notes. And then we're gonna get started. So that being said, let's get going here. Let me turn the page here and do more of a formal, excuse me, more of a form. I'm a little hoarse tonight, so bear with me. I don't think I'll lose my voice, but you never know. All right. My name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant at RFC as a designation for retirement planning and asset management. I also carry the NSSA designation. That's the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. I am also the author of the NSA's the Social Security workbook on Social Security and filing strategies that you're going to receive at the end of the workshop tonight. That being said, I also own a registered investment advisory firm. This is necessary disclosure that I need to do. It's called City Center Advisors. I own it with my son. We have we're a mid-sized firm. We're not billions and billions of dollars, but we are way over 100 million, several hundred million. So that being said, I need to disclose this because the SEC says that I'm required to, but this is not what we're about this evening. I'm not here to talk about investments, not here to talk about, hot tips on the stock market or some program that you should do. We're going to talk about Social Security and filing strategies and taxes and how Social Security affects your retirement. That being said, I'm very proud of the work that we do. My son and I, it's a gift to be able to work with your son who, you changed his diapers and one day you didn't dream that he might be better than you at something. And my son's name is Joel, and he absolutely is. We've done extraordinarily well. We've been blessed. I think 1,161 different client accounts. I think we have business and clients in 43 different states. We've done extraordinarily well, and we've been blessed by that. But again, not what we're going to talk about this evening. Okay, that being said, let me talk a little more directly about why we're here. Why is Social Security such a big topic? This is, by the way, the most talked about, hottest topic. Most people are curious about, most searched after thing in retirement practice in the country and has been for almost 10 years. People are concerned about it, but you might ask why. Well, every single day, 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65. That will soon be not baby boomers, but baby boomers are still turning 65 every single day. That's going to continue for about the next 11 years. That's 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month, 3.64 million last year. It's a lot of people. And they're all curious about, how do I get the best deal? How do I make sure I'm doing the right thing for me? And you might say, why? Well, it's pretty simple. Social Security doesn't offer advice. In fact, if you work for the Social Security Administration, you're taught not to give advice. You can answer direct questions, but you can't tell somebody that's the wrong question. You certainly can't say, you should be looking over here or you should be doing this. They will not take that responsibility. So what does that mean? Well, 65% of retired middle-income Americans derive more than 50%, more than half of their retirement income is coming from Social Security. Since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. Now, I didn't mean 84,000 people. I mean 84,000 companies. Some of those companies had more than 100,000 employees. This is not a small deal. This is an enormous part of our population that all of a sudden just lost what our parents and grandparents mostly had. When I first started in the industry, I'm going to show my age here a little. In 1978, when we asked people, how old should we plan for when you're retiring, the suggested age was 80 to be safe. And if you were really safe, 85. That's just not enough today. People are living longer. When Social Security was started in 1935, and it was set that you could retire at 65 and receive this pension, the average male lifespan was to 63. This wasn't for everybody. It started off for just the people who made it past that date. Now it's really rare for a healthy 60-year-old not to make it to 65, not to make it to 70, not to make it past that. And 40, maybe the most concerning thing at all, 46.1% of Americans currently pass away with less than enough to fund their own funeral in their accounts. Now, you might say, well, Dave, there are a lot of poor people in our country, and there are, but that's almost half of us, and there aren't that many poor people. More importantly, lots of the people that fall into this category started their retirement with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in things like 401ks and IRAs, but they ended up in the same place. And if that doesn't send a little bit of a chill down your spine, I don't know what will. And if you don't understand that or don't know, how did that happen? How did somebody with $500,000 end up dead broke before they died? You've got to figure it out, because that's the only way to make sure you avoid doing the exact same thing. All right. You might ask the question, do you insure your home? Of course you do. Your car. I live in Pennsylvania. You don't have a choice here. How about your health insurance? Well, if you're on here and you're interested in Social Security, you're also interested in Medicare, which is a government-run insurance program, health insurance. Now, you've paid for it your entire life, but it's still an insurance program. And yes, you've insured it. And then do you insure your retirement? Well, yes, that's what Social Security is. Now, some of you insured it way beyond that with pensions and other things, other instruments that can give you some assurance and insurance of what you're going to get. But Social Security is a government-sponsored insurance program for your retirement. All right. What's the risk of outliving your income? This is census data, U.S. Census data. Watch this. I think you'll find this interesting. If you're a single male, age 65, today, you have a 50% chance of living to 85. Now, that's 20 years. That's probably not surprising to almost anybody on here. but you have a 25% chance of living to 92. If you're a single female, you got a 50% chance that you're living to 88 and a 25% chance you're living to 94. And if you're a couple, age 65, if you're a male in that couple, you have a 50% chance, a coin flip, you're living to 92. And if you're the female, you have a 50% chance that you're living to 97, 3 years shy of 100. Now, if you, I've been married 49 years. If I told my wife this, I've told this to her before, and she would say, I don't want to live that long. And I understand. By the way, she's far more likely to do that than I am. She has her mother and father both lived well into their 80s. Her grandparents, one of them lived to 97 and the other one lived to 94. She's got a pretty good chance of making it there. And she's in physically great health. So what do you do? And why is this such by the way, why are couples so much more? Why is there extra longevity? How do you get an extra 5 or more years? The answer is if you care about somebody, you're likely to tell them when something's wrong and get them to the doctor, force them to go. About 6 months ago, my wife made me go to a dermatologist. I have a sister that died of skin cancer 10 years ago. We were those frolicking kids that grew up on the East Coast, and every summer, as soon as the first day of summer was out, we threw on our bathing suits, went to the pool the first day the pool opened, and we were the kids that got burned. We didn't come in until we were just burned. And then we waited for it to peel because guess what happens after that? You get tan. And we couldn't wait to get tan. Now, our kids have been smarter than that, and their kids have been way smarter than that, but I wasn't. And my sister paid a horrific price for that. But my wife saw something on my back that she didn't like. And she made me go in and see the dermatologist. I have a regular appointment every year, but she didn't want to wait. And I get it. I get it. It's important. Turns out it was a mole, and I was absolutely fine. But if she did it again tomorrow, I would still go in. And that kind of thing makes couples live longer. Maybe it's because they have something to live for. I don't know. But that's it. All right. This is Ethel Carterham. She is from England. She is 115, almost 116 years old. She took the place of Sister Lucas, a Catholic nun, who was 116 years old when she passed away a couple of years ago. She took the place of Connie Tanaka, who was at 119. Before that, it was this woman, last name Brown, from Jamaica, who was 122. We are living longer and longer and longer, and you cannot discount that. And when you're planning for your own retirement, you can no longer just plan to a specific date. You have to make allowances that you might live a very long life. By the way, I pay a lot of attention to this, but you can look at a list of the oldest people in the world. If you looked at it 15 years ago, there were almost no Americans on that list at all. I think there might have been 2. Now it's chock full of Americans, women and men, that are living longer and longer and longer. Our parents and grandparents are living a long time. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about because you're caring for them. I get it. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. Benefit basics, strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. Now, if you're single, and you noticed I didn't mention single here, don't worry. Social Security was created for you as a single person. But if you're worried, is there going to be anything that's different than these things? These are all variations on that. Yeah. You see that word taxes? Boy, do you need to pay attention. I mean, you do if you're a married couple or divorced or a widow too. But if you're single and you're not paying attention to Social Security and taxes, you're going to pay a price. And you don't want to pay that price. And then why is it so important to coordinate benefits? All right. What are the basics? To get Social Security, you had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid in, and your employer matched that. Then they used the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefit. What do I mean by that? They take not the first 35 years, not the last 35 years, not the middle. Each individual year is weighed and prorated, and then the highest 35 of those are counted. And then once they have those 35, they add them all together, the prorated amount, and they divide by 35. Now, let's say, and why I bring this up is, and maybe why this is so important is, what if I don't have 35 years? Well, Dave, if you don't have 35 years, you need to pay attention because this absolutely affects your decision to file and when you file. Because if you don't have 35 years, let's say you have 30 years, they're going to take the highest 35 years, which will be the only 35 or 30 years that you have. They're going to prorate them, add them all up, and then to get the average, they're going to divide not by 30, but by 35 years. If you know much about math, when you add up a bunch of things and you divide by a higher number, the higher the number, the lower the average. This is going to dramatically affect you. Even 1 year of adding a zero and then dividing by the higher number is going to affect you greatly. You cannot discount how important this is. Why you need to know this. So this is available to you. You can go to your report on www.ssa.gov. If you don't have an account, you should have one. If you do have, you can look at it, look at your earnings history, and make sure that it's all there. Make sure there isn't a missing year or two. I've had clients that walked into our office, sat down, we did a complete plan for them. We're working on their Social Security, and we realized they've got a really low number. And so we asked some questions. What was your average income? Well, it didn't make sense. So we dug deeper. It turns out that when we actually looked at their Social Security report, we saw a very simple problem. They had a 9-year gap where they had zeros all in a row. He said, but I worked. I said, well, who did you work for? Well, I worked for this guy who owned this company. He was a single employer. And, that was 15 years ago. I haven't worked there since. Turns out that he worked there, he got paid there, that the employer collected his Social Security, but never paid it into the Social Security system. He just kept it for himself or to keep the business afloat. I don't know which, but it doesn't matter. That was a huge problem. But you know what? That's not his problem. That's the employer's problem. All we had to do was go to the Social Security or go to IRS, pull up his tax returns for those years using a 4506T. That's the form that you fill out for each individual tax year. Pull it up, go to the Social Security Administration, prove that we did it, go to the IRS, prove that we did it. The IRS will collect the money, Social Security immediately credited, about 6 weeks. But they did it, and it got fixed, and his Social Security soared comparatively. But you have to know these things. You can't assume that everything is there. They provide that for you, and it's up to you to check it to make sure it's right. Now, you need 40 credits. A credit is equal to 1 quarter meaning a calendar quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. Each quarter, you can earn only 1 credit, but that 1 credit can equal up to 4 in a year. 10 years would get you at 4 credits a year, 40 credits. That's the minimum you need to get a full retirement benefit. Now, if you only work those 40 credits, only worked for 10 years, you would be entitled to a benefit, but it wouldn't be that much. Remember, they're basing this on 35 years of work history. So they're going to take those 10 average years of income, add them up, and divide by 35. It's going to cut your income almost in quarter. And that would be your average. Not very good and not very much Social Security. Okay, once you have those 40 credits, you've earned a benefit. By the way, to get that credit this year, you need a quarter where you make at least $1,810. So if you're working part-time, there's a really good chance you're not going to get it. But any full-time job is going to pay you more than that. But 1810 up to 4 credits, you could earn 10,000 in the first quarter. You can still only get 1 credit for that. You got to work in each quarter to get this, and you have to earn the $1,810. Okay. Are there any exclusions and reductions to the amount that I get? The answer is sort of, but not really. Some of you are aware, in January of this year, January 3rd, there was a bill called the Social Security Fairness Act of 2025 that was signed into law. This eliminated this thing called the GPO and the WP that affected military service, railroad employees, state, local, national government employees, some school districts. So this GPO and WP affected them greatly up until this point. And it's been looked at for more than a decade to try and fix, but nobody had seemed to be able to do it. But this is done now. So if you're a government employee, well, let me give you an example. If you were a government employee that worked in the government for 30 years and you got a really nice pension and you retired at 55, and then you stayed home for a while and you got bored, so you said, I'm going to get a job, and you went and got another job for 40 quarters, 10 years, right? That just take you to 65. Then you collect your pension from the government. Nobody's going to touch that, right? But you go to collect your Social Security and you have 10 years of work. You've earned the Social Security credit, but the Social Security Administration is what would have cut the benefit even more because you didn't have, they used 31 as necessary to avoid this. 31 years of service, paying into Social Security. Now, that's pretty ugly because you paid into it. You earned it. Your employer matched it. You paid it. You earned it. By the way, if you're self-employed, you paid both sides, but you earned it. You paid for it. But they're going to cut it even more. Worse, the GPO, or the government pension offset, the WP is the windfall elimination provision. The government pension offset really applies to your spouse. Let's say I worked for the government for 40 years and I have a wonderful pension. But my wife, and this is the case for my wife before we married, was a teacher. She taught in the school districts, and she was earning a pension. She was paying into Social Security. She earned credit. But then we started having kids, and she wanted, about 3 weeks before she was due to go back to work, she pulled me aside and said, I really don't want to go. And I said, look, I understand. And I hope I was that kind. I don't know if I was, but it put a bubble in my plans, but it was what it was. And she raised kids, and we had another and another. And, that's for a long time, she stayed home. Now, I will tell you, that was a really hard job, but she wanted to do it. And when they got back to the point where our youngest got settled in school where she was comfortable and she was doing okay, my wife, whose name is Beth, said, you know what, I think I'm going to go look and see if I can find something. And we were living in New York at the time, and she was about 3/4 of the way through her master's. She didn't want to go back to school right then, so she didn't want. It turns out she couldn't get a teaching job, so she worked at another place, and then another place, and then she eventually worked for me. And don't worry, I paid her. I paid Social Security, but in the end, when she finally decided to take her Social Security, it wasn't that big. But let's put her in this situation. I worked for the government for 40 years. I have a wonderful pension. She didn't. She worked sporadically, and maybe she's got 15 years of service and paid into Social Security for 15 years. She's entitled, right? But when she starts to collect, something happens to me and she starts to collect her pension, the government's going to come in and say, GPO, sorry, we're going to cut your pension significantly. And in a lot of cases, listen to this, guys, in a lot of cases, they wiped it out. They took it all away and they just left her with the pension from me. That was so wrong. She had paid into it. Maybe it wasn't that much, but she earned every nickel of it. She should have gotten it. And this Social Security Fairness Act corrected that. That's the change in Social Security in 2025. All right, so how does Social Security work? Workers contribute 6.2% into the system up to a maximum income this year of 176,100. It's not always been that high. In fact, 10, 12 years ago, it was about 114,000. I think in 1997, it was like 84,000. It's gone up substantially. But every dollar you earn after that 176,100, there's no Social Security taken out, period. The employer matches that 6.2 with an exact same number, 6.2%, for a total of 12.4%. 12.5 is 1/8. So essentially, 1/8 of every dollar that you've ever earned has been put into the Social Security system on behalf. Now, today's contributions cover today's benefits. Basically, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. It's been that way since its inception in 1935. We put money in, and the following month, it goes out to pay current bills, current recipients of Social Security. That's how it's worked. Now, it's worked incredibly well. Here's the reason why. In 1935, when we started collecting, there were way more people under 65 than there were over 65. Way more people. And then when our parents started collecting, there were way more baby boomers than there were the greatest generation, by far. At some point, as many as 7-1 paying into the system as opposed to receiving money and benefits from it. It's worked great. Every generation has been bigger until now. Anybody know how many millennials there are? There's a lot. 77 million baby boomers. There are actually more millennials, 81 million, but barely. And thus the concern about solvency. How do we know Social Security is going to last? And the answer is it gets iffy, right? Now, I'm going to give you a take on this. Listen, I do this workshop because I really care that people get informed about Social Security because it makes a huge difference on outcomes for their lives. But I also do it to try and clean up the mess of the information that's out there that's misleading. And I want you to know that solvency is not nearly the problem that everybody makes it out to be. But let's talk about it for a second. 2010, first year that solvency was an issue since 1983. Now, 1983 is a big year for Social Security and baby boomers. Now, if you're on this, I'm assuming if you're looking at Social Security, you're a baby boomer, you're awfully close. So here's the question. What happened in 1983? It's the year that you got the letter. It's the year that Congress said, uh-oh, baby boomers are coming, and it's going to be a problem if we don't do something. So they did something. They didn't do one thing. They did a couple of things. The letter that you got in about August of 83 was a wake-up call. Now, I don't know if you remember the letter. I'll tell you what it said. It said, dear Social Security recipient or future recipient, since its inception, full retirement age has always been 65. But if you're born after 1943, between 1943 and 54, it's no longer 65, it's going to be 66. And if you're born after 1943 or 1954, we're going to add 2 months for each birth year that you were born in until we max out at 66 and 12 months, or 67 for people born in 1960 and beyond. Now, I'll tell you what happened to me. I read that letter and I started to wonder. I didn't wonder about the 1 year. What I wondered about was, how many more letters am I going to get? Turns out I haven't gotten any. Interesting. Now, here's what's fascinating. The next day at work, I was getting a drink or standing at the water cooler, I don't remember which, but I'm having a conversation, and I talked about the letter to somebody that I knew would have some insight, and we're talking back and forth. And out of the blue, somebody 4 or 5 feet away from us said something that I heard for the first time, and I've heard it hundreds of times since. What do you care about Social Security for anyway? It's not going to be around when you retire. Wake up and smell the coffee. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard that. Turns out they were dead wrong. Now, are they concerned? Is there concern? There sure is. But it's still going, and it's surprisingly stronger than you might think. In fact, it doesn't have a solvency problem. It has a funded problem. Solvency means it's going to run out of money. It's not. It's funded, currently funded, so you can pay every benefit for as far as it goes, but only 83 cents on the dollar. So it doesn't have a funding problem. It has a 17 cents every time they pay a dollar out problem. Well, that's a whole lot easier to solve than 100% of the dollar, right? There are 4 basic proposals for solvency and how to improve it. I'll go through them, and then I'll just tell you what's going on and why maybe you need to pay attention to the people that tell you that Social Security is not going to be around. So here's the proposals. And some of these have been here for years, by the way. Increase the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64 or 5. That helps some, doesn't solve the problem. Increase full retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. Again, helps some, but doesn't solve the problem. Here's the one that fixes the problem completely. Increase the payroll tax. Currently 6.2. If we raise it up, 4 years ago, they did the OMB, Office of Management Budget, did a study that said 1%, 0.5% to you, 0.5% to your employer would fix this for about the next 70 years. I don't know if any of you think you're going to live more than 70 years, but it would be way beyond us, probably beyond our kids. But that was 4 years ago, almost 5. So it's probably more than that now, but it's something that would fix the problem, definitively fix the problem. The other one is reduce benefits. By the way, it doesn't fix the problem. It just makes life worse for everybody. It's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. I was at a conference back in March of this year. 200 advisors from across the country. They were handpicked and invited. It was very exclusive. There were people, if I named some names, you would know the names of the people that were there. And some of them speaking, some of them just attending. People that I truly admire, that have done great work in the retirement industry in the last 15 years. But in that conference, and I was honored to be asked, in that conference, they had some breakout sections, and one of them was on Social Security. And look, I do a lot with Social Security. I care about it a lot. So I had to go. And I'm sitting in the center about 4 or 5 rows back, and the panel walks in. It's a moderator and four panelists. And the first panel member I actually recognize. I've heard them before. It's a former director of the Social Security Administration. And I don't recognize the next 2, but the 4th one I don't recognize. But when he's introduced, he's actually another former director of the Social Security Administration, one from one party, one from another, So that I thought sparks are going to fly. This is going to be interesting. But they agreed on far more than they didn't agree on. It was really interesting. But you can imagine they had a Q&A at the end, same as I'm going to do tonight. And that the very first question was about solvency. And I was really impressed. First off, without hesitation, both of them said the same thing. Not going to happen. There isn't going to be, it's not going to fail. They're not going to not pay people. They're not going to short people on their checks. It's not going to happen. And people press them. Well, how do you know that? How do you know? It's just because the culture of how we treat Social Security has been inherent in the system forever. And they'll find a way. Well, what are they going to do? I don't know. But what I do know is they'll find a way. Well, what are they going to do? I don't know. But they just found $4.5 trillion a couple of years ago for a disease that we didn't know anything about or how long it was going to take, so that businesses and companies might be okay. And they spent it without even thinking twice. You think they're going to do that and not fix Social Security? Because nobody paid for a COVID benefit. Nobody set money aside. Nobody did anything to earn that except be an American citizen. Every single person receiving a Social Security benefit paid into the system over years and years and years, or their spouse or parent did, for the purpose of protecting them. This isn't an entitlement. It's an entitlement if you work for 5 years and get a disability claim and you're paid for the rest of your life. But when you put in money for 40 years and then expect to get that money back, that's no longer an entitlement. Then they said something that I think floored me. Social Security they have a culture. And here's what's fascinating. Here's what's interesting. If you get this, the one director said this and the other agreed. If you were to have, you're getting a Social Security check for $1,000 and you've got Medicare and your Medicare premium goes up by $100. They raise it. It's $100 more. Now, not a secondary policy, but the amount that comes out of your Social Security check. And your cost of living is only $60. You have a $40 shortage. That means that next year your check for Social Security would be reduced by $40. Do you know what Social Security does? They don't reduce your check, they eat it. Because it's so compelling, so important for Social Security checks not to go down, not to put seniors in a position where they have less next year than they did last year, that they won't do that. That's their mentality. So people start ripping and telling you, oh, Social Security, you're not going to get a check, or they're going to cut your benefit, or there's not going to be any money, you're not going to. They're all just baiting you. Either they're baiting you for clicks, which, there are people out there. I could get 1 million clicks tomorrow. I could get 1 million views tomorrow if I told everybody to take benefits at 62 and that Social Security was going to fail, because that's what gets people to click. But it's not true. But there are people out there that do that every single day. And I could show you them. They get millions of views. And guess what? They get paid for that. Now, I don't get paid for any of this. We don't think that it's something that we should charge for. But I'd rather you know the truth. All right, let me get going here. How are benefits determined? You get your full retirement age benefit, your FRA, full retirement age benefit, at 66 or 67, depending on your birth date, or 66 in some months, depending on your birth date. You get 100%. If you take it early, say it's 62, you get less, gradually less until 62, where you get 75%. If you take it later, you delay, you get these things called DRCs, delayed retirement credits, 8% per year. Now, they're not compounded, but they are stacking. 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% is 132%. The difference between taking it at 62 and getting the full amount that you could get at 70 is actually 177% more benefit. It's like getting your full retirement age benefit at full retirement age and an extra 62-year-old benefit on top of that because you waited 66, 67, 68, 69, 74 years. It's incredibly important that you know that. Okay. 3 distinct Social Security benefits. Retired worker benefit. That's your benefit based entirely on your earnings record. A spousal benefit. My spouse can get a spousal benefit when I file. I have to file for her to get that. She could have never worked a day in her life, and she's entitled to that because it's based entirely on my contributions, not hers. And then widow, widower, or survivor benefits go to the surviving spouse of a deceased worker based on the deceased worker's contributions, not the remaining spouse. All right, in 2015, they changed Social Security a little because people like me were telling people how to get more benefit. It changed. It's called the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. It changed Social Security for married couples and divorced spouses, creating 3 sets of rules. I'm going to go through this really quickly because it's only going to apply to the final group, which is you. And it's only one part of that that is something that you need to be really aware of. This actually changed it considerably. Let me tell you why. Let me just tell you how this worked and why it was important back then. If you were in group 1, you were born prior to May 1st, 1950, you could have gone in on your 62nd birthday, filed, and then immediately suspended your benefit. So you filed, but you're not getting the benefit. Why would you do that? Because your spouse could go in the next day and file what's called a restricted application for only the spousal benefit, not filing for their benefit, filing for the spousal benefit. You filed, but you suspended, so you're not doing anything. Your benefit's still growing all the way to full retirement age, all the way to 70 if you choose. Their benefit growing all the way to full retirement, all the way to 70 if they choose. But in the meantime, they were able to collect a spousal benefit at age 62, and they could have collected that all the way along, all the way to 70. It was a great way to get extra income. You can't do this anymore. Nobody can. So group 1, born prior to May 1st, 1950. Group 2, after that, but before January 2nd, 54. And then group 3 is people born after January 2nd, 54. That's all of us, right? So this group still can't do that. But for this group, they added a thing called deemed filing. And this is the thing that I need to explain why you need to pay attention. Used to be that you could file and suspend, you could change, you could do all sorts of things. You can't now. Now you can go in and file. Worse, if you go in and file and you tell the person, hey, I'd like to claim my spousal benefit on my husband or on my wife, not only can't you do that, they're not even going to pay attention to you. Once you fill out the paperwork, they're going to go back to their computer. They're going to determine on that day, right, to December 3rd, 2025, the highest benefit you're entitled to is this, and that's what you're going to get. Even though if you haven't researched it and checked it out, it may not be in the long run the best thing for you to do. They're not going to talk about any of that stuff. They're just going to give it to you and say, thank you very much. Have a happy day. That's it. You need to be aware of that beforehand because deemed filing means you're going to get that benefit whether you want it or not. And here's the worst part of deemed filing. Once you've done it, you're done. There is no more filing. There's no more changing. You are stuck with that benefit. All right, married couples. To qualify for spousal benefits, you must have been married for 1 full year. The primary worker must have filed now. So for my wife to get a benefit, she can't right now because I haven't filed. Until I file, she cannot get a benefit. Why haven't I filed? I'm waiting until 70. I'm trying to max it out. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than one half of the primary worker's PIA. PIA is a fancy term, primary insurance amount. That is the amount that's calculated to get you to your full retirement age benefit. In the end, your FRA and your PIA they're not exactly the same, but they're very close. And for our purposes, they're basically the same thing. Now, you get up to 50% of your spouse's PIA. So here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age, $2,000. Jane would be eligible for one half at her full retirement age. She would get $1,000. Pretty simple, right? It's a little more complicated, but let's go. All right. So if you're filing early or late, you get, or if you file at your full retirement age, you get 100%. File early as 62, you get 75%. But if you file a spousal benefit early, you don't get 75% of your spouse's benefit. Well, you don't get that anyway. You get instead of getting 75% of 50%, you get 70% of 50%. They cut it even more. Now, you know about the delayed retirement credits, the DRCs, you get the 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. But if you delay taking your spousal benefit, you get 0, 0, 0, 0. There is no additional benefit for delaying. The max Social Security benefit for spousal benefits happens at full retirement age. Any delay is just throwing away money. If you delay a year, you can't even file back and get the money that you didn't file. You can only file spousal benefits going forward. Whereas if I file my own benefit backwards, I can easily get 6 months. In some cases, I get up to a year. In fact, most of the time now, when you set your appointment to go talk to Social Security about filing, they're going to offer to do that for you, mind you, at a lower rate. So if I take my benefits for 6 months, they're going to file me 6 months earlier, meaning a lower amount. If I'm getting 8% credits per year, that means for 6 months, I'm getting 4% less overall benefit for the rest of my life to get those 6 extra payments early. Okay. Survivor benefit. At the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, right? Simple. The benefit of the deceased. So you can take my benefit, or I can take my deceased spouse's benefit, not both, one or the other. Or if the deceased spouse filed early, say at 62, and they're only getting 75% of their full retirement benefit, Social Security will now bump that to 82.5. Why? Well, this is one of the reasons I get so angry at this constant misinformation about why you should file early. A lot of people out there telling you file at 62, file at 62. No reason to wait. It's a bad move to wait. And we've done surveys. Here's the thing. Last year and the year before, 40%, two-fifths of every single person filed at 62, at the earliest possible age. Now, we've done surveys of these people. We ask them why. Why are you doing this? The two most common answers by far, a couple answers like this, but these are the huge two, right? One is, I think I might die early. I want to get some benefit before I die. If you have a spouse and you're thinking that, you've made a huge error, because this isn't just your benefit, it's likely your spouse's too. That's one. Two, I'm afraid Social Security is going to go broke and I won't get anything. So I want to get it as soon as I can and get as much as I can before it goes broke. Not going to happen. So you've just been taunted into filing at an age that doesn't benefit you. Because this has happened so much, the government's bumped this from 75% to 82.5%. Most common mistakes: higher wager files early, shortchanges that survivor benefit, just shortchanges that person. And then both delay past full retirement age. Nobody collects the spousal benefit at full retirement age thinking it's going to grow. It's countless amount of people I've talked to that literally told me they thought it would still grow. It's not going to. All right, divorced individuals. To collect a divorced spouse benefit, you must have been married for 10 years in a row to the same person. No stopsies and starties, no switching rides in the middle of the adventure. It's the same person for at least 10 years. You cannot currently be married. If you remarry after a divorce, prior divorce spouse benefits are off the table. You have a current spouse, and after a year, you have the right to file benefits for them, but not for the previous spouse. Now, if your current spouse dies, passes away, or you divorce again, that previous 10-year marriage benefits come back on the table. You can't still cannot get them at the same time, but you can get them if they're better for you. Same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. There is no difference, zero difference between divorce spouse benefits and regular spousal benefits, with one simple exception. That exception is called the independently entitled rule, and it happens for divorced people after 2 years. So my wife of 49 years wants to get Social Security, but she can't. She can get her own, but she cannot file for a spousal benefit until I file. We've been married 49 years. You'd think she'd be entitled, but she's not. But if we had been divorced for 2 years, doesn't matter whether I've taken my benefit or not, she can claim. That's the only difference. Clearly, it favors being a divorced spouse. All right, Bipartisan Budget Act for divorced spouses. This is the one that was created in 2015. No difference. Again, born prior to May 1st, 1950, you can't use it. And by the way, why would you? You're already over 75. Born after May 1st, 1950, before January 2nd, 54, you're at least 71. You should have filed too. But if you're born after January 2nd, 54, and you haven't yet filed, restricted application for spousal is no longer available to you either. But if you're older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as age 62, switch to a larger divorced spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches their full retirement age. This can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouse marriages. Now, I've seen as many as 3. I think 4 is the holy grail out there, but this can happen. Now, again, you can't file both at once, but you can file one and then switch to another when it benefits you to do that. Pretty interesting. All right, common issues for divorced spouse. People ask these all the time. Is my current spouse, is this going to affect their benefits or their spouse's benefits or their dependents' benefits? Absolutely, categorically, no. Is my ex-spouse notified? The answer is, just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing your health information without your written permission, Social Security cannot give this to other people unless you are entitled to a benefit that you can only apply for if you know what the benefit entitles. So if you're a divorced spouse and you need the information necessary about your former spouse's Social Security information, they will give you enough that you can tell whether you file. If you can prove that you had a 10-year marriage license, copy of the final divorce decree showing at least 10 years, that's the requirement. Okay. Widows. I'm going to do, let's do this and then I'll do a quick case study on the widows. To qualify for a widow benefit, you must be at least 60 years old. This is the only benefit that you can get for retirement purposes before age 62. You must be unmarried. You must have remained unmarried from the time of your spouse's passing away until your 60th birthday. You get married the day after your 60th birthday, and you still qualify for this even though you're married. But if you married a day before your 60th birthday, you're no longer entitled. Uh, you have to be married at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. The marriage had to last at least 9 months. There are a couple of exceptions, but they're very few. Full-time police or firemen killed in the line of duty, full-time active military killed in the line of duty. That's it. Those are the only exceptions. All right, I'm going to do a quick case study here. I'm going to do a couple. I think this is the one that is going to show you why filing correctly is so important. The next one, I urge you all to pay attention to. I think it's the thing that most people remark about, or I get most comments about in the workshop. It's the thing they think is most important because it opens eyes, and that's about taxes. Here's the one. Here's this one. This is a widow benefit. John, never elected, dies at 64. Benefits at his full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, his spouse, 5 years younger, age 59 when John dies. She remains unmarried for the year until she's 60. Jane's estimated benefit on her own, this is her benefit, which she doesn't qualify for yet. She has to be 62 to collect. At 62 is $1,197. Let's take a look. I call the first one file without thinking. It's what most of us do. We walk into Social Security and we say, how much can I get? It is, Social Security tells us it's the most common question asked. And it seems logical. Why wouldn't you ask that question? But it's not necessarily the right question. But if you walk in, Jane's going to ask that question. They're going to say, well, look, the only benefit that you qualify for right now is the survivor benefit. So if you take that, we're going to do simple math here. No cost of living increases, no anything except just simple. We're going to pay you the same thing. We're going to assume you live 25 years to 85, so 300 months. You're going to collect at 60, $1,537 a month. And you're going to collect that for the next 300 months or 25 years. If you do, you're going to collect over that period of time $461,100. Strategy one, pretty simple. Don't take that. Wait 2 years. Then collect your own benefit. Now it's less, it's $1,197, but that means that your other benefit, the survivor benefit, is still growing all the way to full retirement age. And at that point, it's $2,150. So that's when you switch. You collect $1,197 from 62 to 66, $2,150 from 67 on. That raises what you've collected from 461,000 to 536, almost $80,000 difference. Most people think strategy two is better. Strategy two is collect the full retirement benefit, or the benefit from the survivor benefit at 60, the 1,537. But don't forget about Social Security. You have a benefit. Now, it's worth less now. It'll be worth less at 62. But by the time you reach 70, it's $2,108 a month. That's more than 1,537. So switch. That means you've got 15 more years to collect a higher benefit by almost, $560, $550? Look at the difference. Now, over your lifetime, you've collected $563,904, more than $102, almost $103,000 more than you would have collected if you just took the first one and forgot about it, which is what most people do. This is something you really have to pay attention to because it's just in your best interest. I don't know anybody that can walk away from $100,000 of extra money in retirement. I don't care how much money you have. Okay, if you decide to take your Social Security at age 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you at 66, and you earn more than $23,400 a year in income for earned income, for every $2 over that 23,400, just under $2,000 a month, they're going to take $1 of your Social Security back. Let me make this simple. If you make about $58,000 a year and you make $24,000 in Social Security, at the end of the year, you're going to owe every single dime of that $24,000 in Social Security back to Social Security with interest. They have a really good collection system. At the end of the year, when you file taxes, the IRS is going to look at those, see that you have Social Security, report that to Social Security. Social Security is going to go, oh, you worked, you made more than this. We're going to do the math. You owe us every dime of that with interest. They're going to send sometime around July, if you filed in April, you're going to get a collection letter that says, send us a check. And if you can't send a check, don't worry. We have a really good collection system. We're just going to stop paying you until we're caught up. And if you work out a really good deal, this is on 60 Minutes a couple months ago, they'll only take half until it's caught up, if you can make a case for that. This is a really bad idea. It's a really terrible way to start retirement. And if you could plead all day long, hey, I stopped working, I'm not working anymore, this is my only income, they don't care. In the year that you turn full retirement age, FRA, if you earn more than $62,160, for every $3 over that, they're going to take $1 back. Now, this is only the money that you've earned after you start collecting Social Security. So if you take your Social Security in November, this probably isn't a problem. But when you report to IRS and they send the information to the Social Security Administration about your income, they're not going to report what month you earned it in. You need to keep records. If you're going to take your Social Security in the year that you turn full retirement age and you make more than this $62,160 that year, you need to keep records of when you made the money. Keep your pay stubs. You're going to need them. The only way to avoid that is to literally wait until January 1st of the year after you turn FRA to start taking your benefit. Now, after full retirement age, once you get to January 1st, the year after you turn FRA, you can earn $1 billion and there's no reduction in your benefit. But if you earn a lot of money, you are going to have to deal with taxes. Now, I wish I could ask everybody on here if they knew that Social Security was taxable before tonight. Generally, about half the people do and about half the people don't. I'm not at all surprised because 10 years ago, almost nobody knew this because it hadn't really affected anybody yet. But this law was put in place in 1983. It just wasn't designed for our parents or grandparents. It was absolutely aimed like a cruise missile at baby boomers. It has locked on, and it is absolutely there, and you need to be absolutely aware of this. Now, here's why this is so upsetting and disappointing, is Social Security in the bill in 1935 when President Roosevelt wrote it. By the way, he not just signed it into law, he wrote the bill and then urged Congress to pass it and then signed it into law. It was the middle of the Depression. It was created to help people over 65 who were dying because they didn't have money for dinner. And it did a lot more, and it's become a lot more. And we should actually be very proud of it. It's created an incredible middle class in our country. I in some ways, have the joy. My grandmother died when I was 7 years old. That's not the joy part. That was incredibly heart-wringing for me. But my grandfather came to live with us. But he did because the only income he had was $161 Social Security check. That was it. Um, and he lived with us until the day he died. Now, I got some incredible benefits of that. I got to spend time with somebody that I found fascinating and who had lived a fascinating life. He grew up in Europe and in Austria and immigrated to the United States. He fought in World War One. He was a fascinating guy. But here's the thing about taxes. In the bill, it was a tax-free income to retired people. It was always a tax-free income until 1983. Here's the thing about this. It's tax-free because we already paid tax on it. You have already paid tax on Social Security once. How do I know that? Because you don't get a deduction on your tax return for your FICA payment. It's taxable. Think about that. For your entire life, every dollar they've collected, you already paid tax on it. And just like a Roth IRA, you pay tax on it up front, it goes in, and when you pull it out, it's not taxable. But this is. It sticks around in there until you turn 62 or 5 or 70 when you take it, and then it comes out and it's taxable. And it was never created that way. It is a huge problem, and it has wreaked havoc on people's retirement. I'm going to show you a couple things. I want you to be prepared for this. By the way, people say, how complicated could this be? Well, it takes 33 pages to explain to somebody on publication 915 how to fill out your Social Security taxes on your income tax. It comes with a nice little worksheet. I think you'll be interested. This is a chart that was made up by Congress in 1983. This chart is something called provisional income. If you haven't written anything else down, this is what I would write down tonight: provisional income. If you're a single person and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. If you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. If you're a married couple, 32,000 of provisional income means 50% of your Social Security is taxable. 44,000 of provisional income means 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Now, this is a targeted attack on baby boomers. Why? If your grandparents in 1983 made $44,000 in retirement income, provisional income in 1983, they're amongst the highest 2% income earners in the country in retirement. This wasn't targeting them. It wasn't targeting our parents. It was never meant to be something that affected them. It was, we're going to set it and forget it, and it will do its job when baby boomers come of age. And boy, has it. Boy, has it. In fact, you would not hear me talk about this if this had been even for a minute adjusted for inflation. In fact, if that 44,000 had been adjusted for inflation over the last 42 years, that 44,000 would be 142,000. So if you told me that the adjustment was that if you made less than 142,000, you didn't pay tax on your Social Security, but if you'd made more than that, you do, I'd go, I get it. I understand that, but that's not what's happening. All right, let me explain what is included in provisional income, and then I'll explain what isn't. Okay, this is what's included in Social Security, in provisional income for Social Security. all W-2 income, all your gross income, 100% of it, all your pensions, doesn't matter what kind, military, fireman's pension, corporate pension, doesn't matter what it is, government all count 100% as provisional income. Any wages, any interest income, any tax exempt interest income. So even the money that you put in something like a municipal bond that doesn't pay federal tax or sometimes even state tax, it still counts as provisional income to see if we can qualify you to pay tax under security. All 1099 income, 100% of it, commission sales income, real estate sales income, anything paid to you as casual income that you get a 1099 for counts. Some of you are really savvy real estate investors. Got it. 100% of your Schedule E rental income counts as provisional income. All that money that you are trying to, you've got all sorts of tax things, but in terms of this, it all counts. Maybe you own a small business or a partnership or an LLC, and at the end of the year, you get a profit and you get something called a K-1 that says, here's the amount of profit that you participated in from the company last year. Mind you, that sometimes that K-1 comes with an amount. You got $30,000, but you didn't get $30,000 because the company kept it to reinvest in the company, to buy equipment, to capital expenditures, to do whatever, and you'll get it sometime in the future. But that K-1 amount still counts 100% as provisional income. Maybe you're like my daughter and son-in-law who they overpay their taxes. They have their companies collect more by taking less deductions than they're entitled to, so that at the end of the year, they get big tax returns. Now, they have children, so they get child tax credits. They get all sorts of things. They get big refunds. 100% of those refunds count as provisional income in the year that you receive them. Oh, yeah. Here are the big ones. Do you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a SEP, a SLRP, any tax-deferred retirement account that you save money in by not paying taxes on the money that goes into it? It grows tax deferred, and then when you take the money out in retirement, it's taxable. That 100% counts as provisional income in the year that you take it out. Some of you, a bell just rang. Some of you are remembering advice that you've gotten over the years. Hey, Dave, why don't you put more money in that IRA? Why don't you put more money in your 401k? It's growing tax deferred. You don't pay any tax on it now. And when you're in retirement, your tax rates will be lower. You'll pay less taxes. What those advisors didn't tell you is, one, look at the tax brackets today and tell me that you're paying a lower tax rate in retirement than you did when you were working. The answer is, unless you were making close to $500,000 a year, that's not true. That's one. Two, did they tell you when they told you to do that, that by doing this, you might actually be paying tax on something like Social Security that you were never intended to pay tax on in the first place? Because that's what's about to happen for most of you. Now, it's not too late to fix some of this, but I will tell you, most people don't even have a clue that this is about to happen to them. And it's a big, big deal. By the way, one last thing. 50% of your total Social Security income counts as provisional income. So if you have a combined income of $50,000 from Social Security between the two of you, $25,000 of that counts as provisional income before anything else. Before anything else. By the way, all the other stuff, capital gains, all of that, you put money in investments, you get growth, you pay a capital gains tax. Guess what? Provisional income. Let me go on. I want to show you how this works in more detail because this is such a big deal. But I want to make sure that I don't run out of time. Here's that second case study that I wanted to show you. Please bear with me on this. This is so important. I'm just going to get into it. Here's a client, typical, 64 and 62. This is very typical of people we see. Just over $34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if both file at age 62. They want to retire early. Why? Their starting retirement was $752,000 in 401ks and IRAs. Now, some of you are going, that's it? And if you think that's it, let me tell you, this couple with only $752,000 has a serious tax problem. And some of you are going, $752,000, $750,000, that's a lot of money. This couple with $750,000 saved has a serious running out of money problem. And Social Security and taxes on Social Security has a huge part in both of them. All right, 6% annual return. We're going to give them a 6% annual return, would say 3% inflation. They need $70,000 per year in inflation-adjusted after-tax income. And we assume they're going to live to 86 and 89, respectively. All right, let's take a look. I'm going to show you a cash flow. Well, look, if they retire at 62, this is what they're walking away from. $186,496 in Social Security income that they paid for. They contributed enough to get that. They just didn't wait for Security to give it to them. They took it so early that that's the portion that they walked away from. And folks, they needed every nickel of that. They didn't know. Nobody told them they did. But they walked away and didn't realize they were giving up a serious problem. Okay, this is a cash flow. The blue lines are their Social Security. Those orange bars are their 401ks, their IRAs, the $752,000. That black line, the graded line, that's the income need. That's that $70,000 inflation-adjusted income. At the end of the orange bars, you see white space, gray space. You see nothing because they ran out of money. This couple who started retirement with $750,000, asking for $70,000 in adjusted gross income, not a terrible, I mean, that's a reasonable ask. But 2/3 of the way through retirement, they are broke and living on Social Security. Remember when I said 46.1% of Americans end up without enough money to fund their own funeral? This couple is living on Social Security. That's it. Now, this isn't going to kill them, but let me tell you what this is going to do. Most people don't tell you this, but they're going to adjust to this. But they're going to adjust in a massive, massive, massive lifestyle change. That's what they're looking forward to. The question is, when do they figure that out? I don't know. But there's a point of no return here. And for them, it's really after they file. This is a customized cash flow. This is the same couple. All I've done is adjusted the way they file. There's a bunch of other things that we could do for this couple, but I just want you to see, with nothing else other than filing correctly, this couple can have a different life. They can turn that into this. Now, I want you to see the difference here. If you look at the very beginning, they're filing at 62. Their blue bars are starting, but it's not enough to fund that $70,000. It's not even close. they have to start taking money out of their 401ks and IRAs. And when they do that, they're going to have to start paying taxes. It's just the way it works. And they're going to have to pay taxes on Social Security that they were never intended to pay on. Here, they're going to take all of the income in the first several years from their savings, from their 401ks and IRAs. They're not going to start Social Security until 68 and 69, respectively. And it is going to change, it's going to get them through to the end. Again, lots of other stuff we could do for this couple, but just filing Social Security correctly and understanding the tax implications of what you do and how it affects whether or not you pay tax on your Social Security makes an enormous difference. And doing it correctly can save them. It can absolutely make them have a wonderful retirement. Federal taxes, look, I don't want to go too far over here. Federal taxes are a ton difference. Look, $186,000 more in Social Security income, less if they didn't run out of money and they file correctly, $100,000 difference in federal taxes. This is not a small thing. It's a big deal. Between those two, it's more than $250,000. You can't walk away from that unless you don't know it exists. And that's the fear, is that you file without understanding the implications. All right. In your statement, there is no cost of living adjustment. There never is. Social Security is never going to project out what cost of living is going to be in the future. In October, they tell us what it's going to change to. In January, by the way, 2.8%, if you don't know that already, is the adjustment. But they're never going to tell us until October. You have to have some way to project that to have any sense of being able to do planning. It assumes you work to 62 or full retirement age or to 70. Most of you are not going to retire at exactly one of those. And maybe the most egregious thing, the thing that upsets me the most, I've been married to my wife for decades and decades and decades. Social Security knows that. The IRS certainly knows that, but they look at her record and my record like we don't know each other, like we're two ships passing in the night. They will not coordinate them together. And you need to be able to do that to have any sense of if you're going to be okay or not. And they cannot offer you any kind of advice. AARP says whether you're close to retirement or turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings records each year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. It's also important to be aware there is a statute of limitations on some of the corrections. If you wait too long, you won't be able to fix anything. Every time I do one of these workshops, I always offer a personal Social Security analysis. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to offer it to you. Let me explain what it is. I'm going to explain who's going to do it, and I'm going to explain why we do it. And then we're going to get to the Q&A, so bear with me. Okay, what does it include? Certainly it'll include a break-even analysis, but that's sort of the least of the things that we do. It's easy to implement. It's simple. It's not point and click, but it'll say, this is the right path. Here's the correct way to file. It will do that for you so there's no ambiguity whatsoever. It'll look at alternatives and shortfalls. What if I don't have enough, Dave? What are my options? And then I don't like this particular method. What's an alternative to that? What can I do besides this that will still help me? It'll look at retirement income, cash flow, and tax analysis. Can you save me money on taxes? I mean, is there anybody who doesn't want to do that? And then it'll look at income planning. Are you assessing the amount of income you have too high from your assets that you could run into trouble? Are you not assessing it for enough, which is just as big a problem? We'll look at it and give you a real fair assessment of what you can get. And then, what about Roth conversion? By the way, the only asset that I didn't mention that is not included in provisional income is income from a Roth. So should I have more Roth? Maybe. Oh, most certainly maybe. Will it save me money? And if so, how much? And how should I be putting money in? And when? And what method should I do? And what money should I convert? We'll look at all that for you. And then coordination of your assets. If you don't have a retirement plan that looks at all of your assets, that weighs them, that looks at Social Security, at your non-qualified assets, your qualified assets, your IRAs, your 401ks, your pensions, your life insurance, TSPs, and coordinates them to get you the highest, best purpose for all of them, measuring and figuring out the least amount of taxes, then you don't have a retirement plan. I've cannot tell you how many people over my career have sat down in front of me and told me they have an advisor and I have a plan. And when I ask, what does the plan say about taxes? Oh, my advisor doesn't do that. He told me to talk to my CPA. But when I sit down with my CPA and I ask, he looks at last year's taxes, but he never tells me what to do, not just next year, but heaven forbid, 10 years, 15 years from now. You have to have some plan or you're going to get surprised and not in a good way. All right, if you haven't done this already, go to www.ssa.gov. That's where you'll get, that's Social Security Administration's website. You can set up, if you haven't done this already, you can set up an account. If you have, you already know how to do this and it's easy. You'll be able to look at your entire earnings record. You'll be able to look at what your plan is. You'll need this to do any kind of planning. It's easy. And then you can schedule your actual analysis with us. I'm going to give you two options tonight for the analysis. I've created a workbook. That workbook is option 2. Now, you're going to get a workbook either way, but option 1 is everything I just went over. It's the complete analysis. Let me just pull it up for you. It's the complete analysis. It's the filing strategies, tax strategy overview, the retirement asset and Social Security coordination. It's everything that you need to get started with a retirement plan for Social Security and taxes in your retirement. Now, if you have money in 401ks or IRAs that is going to be affected by this, that's going to affect whether you pay tax on Social Security or not, this is what you need. That's option 1. If you don't, if your primary income in retirement is your Social Security, there is no way, if you only have Social Security, that you will pay taxes, at least currently. There's no projected way that will happen either. So you will not need that. There's no need to coordinate assets and reduce your taxes because you won't have them. If you only have Social Security income or a small account on top of that, you will not have any of this issue. But if you start to get into your 401k or your IRAs, that's when you need option 1. Option 2 is the workbook. It will get you that. And it'll walk you through this. You need a timing strategy, and that's it. And it'll walk you through that step by step. Okay. Look, I told you I would tell you who does this, and I think you're going to be excited. I hope you're excited about this. I've asked a friend of mine, Sam Addington. I've known Sam for a while. Let me tell you his story, and I'll tell you why I'm so proud that he's doing this for you tonight. Sam served in the military as a Apache helicopter pilot. He flew missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he succeeded so well that he became a training pilot. He trained new Apache pilots how to fly, which is I've read more than once that it's the hardest aircraft in the world to fly. It's a beast. I mean, it's the most lethal helicopter in the world. But more importantly than that, it's incredibly complicated to fly. While he was in the Army doing that, Sam earned his master's degree in finance, which was his other love. And when Sam left the Army, he joined City Center Advisors and came here with an MBA in finance. Now he's worked through the College of Financial Planning. He is an accredited portfolio management advisor as well. He's an incredibly gifted advisor. But I, look, when you meet Sam, you're going to be, I think, blown away by who he is and the quality of the kind of person he is. But let me tell you a quick story of why I think Sam is an elite advisor. Not just any advisor, but an elite advisor. There's I don't know if you know about Mogadishu and Black Hawk Down, the helicopter service in the United States Army and the Marines and the Navy all train their helicopter pilots the same way. They have a system called active listening. It teaches their pilots to hear what others miss. And when you hear the story about Black Hawk Down in Mogadishu, uh, a, a, a helicopter went down, and two guys, two different helicopters, who were listening in a standby position in their helicopters, in a standby position, were told not to go in because they couldn't identify where they were. But they listened intently to the scatter on the radio by all sorts of people, and they heard certain things said that allowed them both to identify exactly where that helicopter was. And against incredible odds, they went in and they saved one of the pilots. They won the Congressional Medal of Honor for doing this. It was without absolute, it was an incredible feat. But that is credited to how they're trained as pilots in that service to actively listen, to listen for things that most of us don't hear. Sam brings that quality to his conversations with people like you. He is an incredible listener. But when you think about that, what does that get you? What do you want in an advisor? Well, I think you want someone that listens and hears. Not just listens to what you say, but hears what you don't say. And understands how to ask the questions that make sure that they're on exactly the same page as you. I think you want somebody who is skilled and precise. Look, what we do is not life and death, but it's really important. It's really important. And you want somebody who's incredibly gifted and skilled and precise at what they do. And you want somebody who's trained to think ahead. Helicopter pilots don't fly the 100 feet in front of them. They're flying the next mile and the next 5 miles and the next 25 miles. You want somebody who is looking at the future and can be precise about it and understand what could come and what the possibilities are and how to avoid the pitfalls. Again, it's not life and death, but it's really important. And if you don't think it's really important, you will at some point. That's what it is. All right, I'm going to ask our tech team, excuse me, to post up in the chat section. They'll post a link to our to schedule yourself. You can go on there and pick option 1 for the appointment with Sam, option 2 for the workbook, and then they also just posted a QR code. Now, if you don't know how to use the QR code, they'll post that right on there too. But you just take your camera and point it. You'll see a yellow rectangle. Touch that rectangle, and it'll take you right to the site. And it'll get you there. In the meantime, I will. I think he's opening up the. Is the chat open? Let me pull it up. He's posting it right here. Okay. There we go. Tech, I don't see it in the chat. Oh, there. I don't see it in the chat. Okay. Well, the QR code's working. He'll get it in the chat in just a second. And then we'll ask him to also pull up the first question, and we'll start the Q&A. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm going to take a quick sip of water while I have a break. There it is. All right. Okay, first question. Here we go. Diane, my ex is disabled and drawing Social Security. I'm 63. I'm assuming there's another side to that. Here we go. Can I file now? My son is disabled and he draws said off of his dad's. Yeah, children can draw because of that. Spouses cannot until he reaches, well, I'm sorry. You didn't tell me how old is he. Did you tell me how old he was? Okay, can I file now? How old is he, Diane? If he's full retirement age, he's no longer on disability. He's switched to his retirement benefit, and then you can absolutely take it. If you can ask Social Security to switch him early, but it could lower how much he gets. He typically will get the same amount that he's been getting when he switches to his retirement benefit, and that's when you can switch and take your benefit. That's a good question. Okay, Jot. Women that are having babies should get an automatic amount of Social Security stuffed into their account. This is why we're mostly below poverty because men have not made this correction ever. Excuse me. Yeah, I get it. It's also why the birth rates are way down. It's there's all sorts of reasons. But thanks for your comment. Okay, Timothy, is there a recording of the presentation so I can review it again? Yeah, when we're done here, you can just rewind the actual video and rewatch it from the beginning. Usually up for about 24 hours. Vernetta, spouse died in February on disability. What else is there for me? Well, I don't have his age or anything. If he's deceased, depending on how old you are, if he's deceased and you were married for more than a year, actually 9 months, you can file for this survivor benefit. And as long as you're 60 years old or older. I'm sorry. Yeah. So if you are not 60 years old, there's nothing you can get. If you're older than that, you have choices. If you're more than 62, you can take your benefit or the survivor benefit. I would probably suggest you take the survivor benefit until you reach at least your FRA, full retirement age, or 70, and then switch. But again, if you're meeting with Sam, he can give you specifics. If you're not, the book will give you a workbook that will show you exactly in your circumstance what you should do. Excuse me. Barbara, what if you're retired already? So if you're claiming benefits, look, if you're thinking about, hey, I'm retired, I'm already taking Social Security, should I meet with Sam? If you have money in 401ks and IRAs, yes, because there's still planning you can do that will avoid as much taxes as you can. And there are things you can do, like delay, so you can stop your Social Security if that makes sense, to give you a chance to do other things. So there's lots of opportunities to do planning here. Don't let the fact that you're already retired scare you. Okay, Diane, 66. Yeah, so you definitely are entitled, but it's going to depend on what the benefit is and whether or not it makes sense to take yours or theirs. I mean, you might want to take the survivor benefit or the spousal benefit until you reach your 70, but you might not. It's going to depend. Um, really depends on exact information about your income and his benefit, but that can be figured out. Thanks for the question. Judge, would have liked more information on singles. You focused a lot on married situation. Yeah, Social Security is about singles. These are all the variations. So singles have options with taxes, which is what I think you should pay attention to. But I get it. I get it. Thanks for the question or the statement. All right. Vernetta, my age is 62. Um, Spouse died in February. Oh, hold on. I get that. Go back one. Spouse died in February. Tech, can you go back one? Spouse died in February on disability. What else is there for me? And you are 62. Well, you have options. So you have a survivor benefit that is probably what you're going to want to take, but I can't tell you without looking. You can take your own benefit, but at 62, it's probably not the best thing to do. Is take the survivor benefit and delay that until it maxes out. Either at your full retirement age, if you're 62, that would be 67, or uh, at uh, at your FRA or at age 70. So the answers, it's complex, but one of those answers is correct for you. I can guess, but I can't really tell you. That's either Sam or the book can give you the exact answer without getting into your income and all sorts of stuff right now. Okay. I guess that's the last question so far. Okay. Let me remind you the if you haven't signed up yet, the QR code's right there. The sendworkbook.com is the link is just 5 spaces up from the bottom of the chat. I'll give you about 30 seconds in case somebody else has another question. Here we go. Diane, so Social Security told me I cannot draw off my spouse until I'm 67. I think you told me they're deceased. Is that right, Diane? My ex is disabled and drawing Social Security. I'm 63. Okay. So, Social Security told me I cannot draw off spouse until 67. Well, how old is your spouse? Are they 66? If let me tell you, if they aren't, they're right if you're the same age as them. They're wrong if they're older than you. So if they reach their full retirement age, their benefit from disability is going to switch 66. So 66, and I'm trying to think that they were born prior to 1960. Their full retirement age benefit is 67. So next year, when they turn full retirement age, their full retirement age, you can draw Social Security from them, but only if half of their benefit is more than your full benefit. So that's that deemed filing rule. The deemed filing rule says that if your benefit is higher than half of their benefit, you're going to get your benefit instead of theirs. That's the rule. And that might be why they're saying that. But once they reach their 67, and if you're 62 or 63, I can't remember what you said. 62. No, let me see. I don't remember. Sorry. But if you're when you reach 62, you can file. But again, your benefit is going to have to be less than half of their benefit to draw from them. That might be the issue. But it's their 67, not yours, that matters. Okay. I think that looks like it. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay. Need to log off. Thanks for the session. No problem. Appreciate it, Becca. All right. I'm going to bid you all a good evening. Great planning. And may you all have a wonderful, wonderful retirement. Thanks all for coming tonight. Thanks for hanging with me. We'll see you all soon. Take care.